The book of Isaiah presents a stark contrast in ancient history. Massive, heavily armed empires inevitably collapse, while a single, isolated nation is divinely protected. To understand this collapse, we must perform a strict verse-by-verse exegesis of Isaiah chapter 14, reading the text chronologically against the historical record. This map outlines the 8th century BC. The region was dominated by three aggressive superpowers: Babylon expanding east, the Assyrian war machine north, and Philistia west. Trapped in the center was tiny Judah, entirely surrounded by hostile forces with vastly superior numbers. The rulers of these surrounding nations operated on imperial hubris. They equated temporary military dominance with permanent invincibility, assuming their conquests secured their legacy forever. Yet the historical record reveals a distinct pattern. The total erasure of these military giants, while the vulnerable city of Zion survived, presents an anomaly that demands we look to the text for a divine explanation. In the ancient Near East, royal death came with strict expectations. Kings were to be buried in stately, monumental sepulchres, preserving their glory in stone. Isaiah chapter 14 upends this completely. Verses 18 and 19 declare that the king of Babylon will be denied a grave entirely, cast out like an abominable branch. The historical record aligns with this prophecy precisely. According to Daniel 5:30, the Babylonian king Belshazzar was slain in the middle of the night when the city was taken by Cyrus of Persia. In the chaos of the conquest, Belshazzar's corpse was left on the bare ground. He was deprived of an honorable interment, treated as a bloody garment, and trampled underfoot by the invading army. Verse 20 explains exactly why this happened. The deprivation of honor was a direct consequence of his rule. The text states, "Because thou hast destroyed thy land and slain thy people, the seed of evildoers shall never be renowned." The judgment then moves from the individual king to his entire lineage. Verses 21 and 22 command the conquerors to prepare a slaughterhouse for his children, due to the iniquity of their fathers. The text is absolute. God declares he will permanently cut off from Babylon the name, the remnant, the son, and the nephew. The dynasty is brought to a complete halt. The destruction even extends to the landscape itself. In verse 23, the Lord promises to sweep the city with the besom, or broom, of destruction, making it a possession for wild animals and pools of water. When Cyrus took the city, he diverted the waters of the Euphrates River from their natural channel. The waters never fully returned to their bed, overflowing the region and permanently reducing the once great Babylon to a desolate, uninhabitable swampland. The text shows that unchecked imperial pride yields a specific historical outcome. The kingdom suffers a political defeat, followed by total dynastic erasure, and finally permanent geographical ruin. From the swamps of Babylon, the prophecy pivots north to address the next major geopolitical threat, the heavily armored Assyrian Empire. At the time, the Assyrian war machine was the most lethal military force on Earth, recognized for its highly organized, relentless battalions of archers and siege units. Yet Isaiah 14 verses 24 and 25 record an oath from the Lord of hosts, stating, "I will break the Assyrian in my land, and upon my mountains tread him underfoot." Verse 28 provides a specific historical timestamp for this warning. It was delivered in the year King Ahaz of Judah died, placing the prophecy squarely between 727 and 725 BC. We can trace the historical execution of this judgment to the year 701 BC, when the Assyrian forces marched south to lay siege to Jerusalem. The result is documented in 2 Kings chapter 19. Rather than a protracted battle, the Assyrian camp suffered a catastrophic supernatural defeat, with 185,000 soldiers slain in a single night by the angel of the Lord. The surviving Assyrian forces, stripped of their overwhelming numerical advantage, executed a panicked retreat all the way back to their capital of Nineveh. The removal of the Assyrian yoke was final. Their forces never marched against Judah again. Verses 26 and 27 establish the governing principle behind this collapse. When the Lord stretches out his hand against an empire, no amount of armor or human military strategy can turn it back. The focus then moves to the western coastal plains, turning to the lands of the Philistines. The text uses the term Palestina, derived from the Hebrew root Peleshet, which translates accurately to the land of sojourners or wanderers. In verse 29, the prophet issues a direct command to the entire region. Rejoice not thou, whole Palestina, because the rod of him that smote thee is broken. The Philistines were prematurely celebrating the death of a conquering king who had recently oppressed them, likely either Uzziah of Judah or an Assyrian monarch. Isaiah warns them that the threat is not over, using an escalating zoological metaphor. He states that from the serpent's root will come a venomous cockatrice, or viper, and its offspring will be a fiery flying serpent. This chart visualizes that progression, mapping the text to specific historical reference. Column A represents a lineage of Judean kings, culminating in Hezekiah, while column B tracks a succession of increasingly brutal invading empires, moving from Assyria to Babylon and eventually to Rome. Verse 30 details the physical devastation that will follow. God declares he will kill thy root with famine, starving the fortified cities from within. The second half of the judgment promises that while starvation weakens the core, invading armies will arrive to slaughter the surviving remnant with the sword. The terror of this invasion is captured in verse 31. Howl, O gate, cry, O city, thou whole Palestina art dissolved, for there shall come from the north a smoke. That smoke from the north was the advancing Assyrian host, burning towns, villages, and peasant watchtowers as they marched relentlessly down the Mediterranean coast. The warning to Philistia illustrates a crucial point. For nations operating outside the divine covenant, a shift in regional power does not bring peace. It merely ushers in a more severe, escalating wave of destruction. This regional terror sets up the climactic historical scenario presented in verse 32, featuring the arrival of the messengers of the nation at the gates of Jerusalem. These are Philistine ambassadors. Terrified by the advancing smoke of the Assyrian army from the north, they come seeking a desperate military alliance with Judah. Their panic stands in stark contrast to the silence we just observed in the text. The massive empires of Babylon and Assyria are destined for swamps and ruined sepulchres, while isolated Judah remains untouched. In a landscape consumed by famine and the sword, the text poses the ultimate exegetical question: what shall one then answer the messengers of the nation? The scriptural answer is immediate and definitive, that the Lord hath founded Zion. The first temple's stone foundations provide the physical record of this survival, a city standing while surrounding empires collapsed into dust. But verse 32 reveals a theological paradox. This fortress wasn't built to protect kings, wealth, or elites. The text specifies that Zion was explicitly established so that the poor of his people, the uniquely vulnerable, could trust in it and lie down in safety. The exegesis of Isaiah 14 leaves us with a stark conclusion. Empires built on unchecked ambition and military might inevitably become swamps and graveyards. The only enduring geopolitical refuge is the one God reserves entirely for the humble.